Well, good morning. Welcome to the Back Shed Bible Study. Today, we're talking about senior moments. And I'm not talking about high school seniors. We're talking about as we age, hopefully gracefully, that there are so many things that come along the way. And we're going to dig in deep with my good friend, Luz Johnson, that's joining us here this morning. Luz, welcome to the Back Shed. And welcome to episode number 81 of the Back Shed, November 8th, 2021.
Thank you.
How you doing today, Luz?
I'm good. How are you?
I am very well. It's fun to finally have you here.
Thanks. Yeah. This is exciting for me. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart.
Well, it's near and dear to my heart too. And I have really enjoyed watching your ministry to seniors over the last several years, both at Sunrise and outside of Sunrise. And you've been great at really doing your best to pass on resources and to help people get plugged in a way that can help them be able to walk through these years with grace and to do it well. My mom is 90 and she lives by herself. So this topic is very relevant for me and my family. So Luz, let's just start off. Tell us a little bit this morning about how you got involved with working with seniors and really resourcing them. How did this all come about?
Okay, actually, and I've shared this story a few times, is it actually started very young for me, is just loving being around my grandparents, my aunts and uncles. Family would come over or we'd go to Mexico and visit, and there's just something about being around them that really meant a lot to me. Like their wisdom, just their I don't know, there's just something special about it. And it always meant something to me. So even in my younger years, and even now, as I would go visit Mexico, just being with my grandparents meant a lot. And so professionally speaking, how this has come to be had a lot to do with just being invited to a meeting with lots of other professionals who serve the senior care industry. And I wanted to learn more about it because I like to be the referral source for people. So I get to learn enough about what somebody does so that my mental Rolodex is going as somebody's needing a service. And so I got to learn a ton about the senior resources there. And because of my job, it also has a lot to do with being able to prepare people for the future.
Yeah, because you work as a financial planner. You are certified, licensed. What's the right word to use there?
A licensed financial advisor. Yeah,
you're a licensed financial advisor, and so you help people get their financial plans in order.
Yes.
And Luz, we need to be honest here. Okay, let's just be as transparent as we can be. Luz and I, we have a fun relationship. We have done several Mexicali trips together with Sunrise, and you have come down there, gone with us as an interpreter, and we've preached sermons together where you've translated sermons for me, and so sometimes I just feel like we have a real fun relationship. And the thing though that has always stood out is you are so good at seeing a need and figuring out a way to act on that need. And so it excites me to see how you are doing this in this particular area.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So financial planning. So, how do you merge that senior care and financial planning? And obviously that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. It is a very big deal. I think it's important because, and you look at the financial planning, but it's not just the financial part. Is I'll talk with people about things that have to do with preparing for the future, preparing for, okay, if you don't have some type of insurance or policy for something, let's walk through what it looks like. Still having a plan in place. You still want to have a plan in place, even if the least I do is have an hour conversation with you. And so I'll bring up things that people might not even think about like this. There's lots of different resources when it comes to different types of care. People don't know that you automatically go to the convalescent home. Remember the convalescent home, just even the term itself is like, people don't want to be there. So just letting them know there's lots of different ways that you can have care. There's so many resources on the internet as well. And so, so that has a lot to do with it.
Well, let me stop you right there. This is something that's kind of near and dear to me. As I remember, I had an uncle, a great uncle, many, many years ago that was in a rest home.
Yeah.
And it was, as a child, I remember going to visit him, and it was very sterile.
Yes.
You walk down these sterile hallways, and you walk into a room, and having been in the hospital as a young child, it felt like a hospital. And all the beds and everything, the way it worked, and it just felt like, and I hate to say it this way, but he went away there to rot.
Yes. It's kind of even eerie. I remember having that same experience as well. And it's just, there's no life there. It just seemed like there wasn't.
So with that, I would see, and I've had conversations with my own mother about this. Like, her biggest thing is, whatever you do, don't put me in the home. Right.
Yeah.
And so can you maybe help dispel some myths and rumors, given the state of senior care that is out there today?
Yes. Yeah, that's actually a really important thing. So we look at the baby boomers. So we have this huge, amount, these years, decades even, of this baby boomer generation. And I'm going to just go over this briefly because there's so much you can say about this. But as we keep going with generation than generation, we're having less kids. And so there's less kids to take care of the adult parents. So we have this huge generation that is now using the services, the senior care services, and we're having communities be built, everywhere. We just had, we probably just where the church is and where my office is less than a mile.
Yeah.
In this area alone, I would say we have at least 5, 6, 7 communities.
I mean, I live not too far from the corner of Kenneth and Madison. Mm-hmm. And I watched a Oakmont come in there, just a piece of empty land there and get plowed down, and you drive up where Hazel becomes Sierra College now. There's a whole new one that's
There's Wellquest of Granite Bay. We have Almond Heights between the church and my office.
Right. Yeah. Remember watching that one be built.
Yes.
And it really is a population issue in so many ways, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think what a lot of people don't understand is there's lots of different levels of care. And if you need care, that doesn't mean you need a convalescent home, which are now known as skilled nursing facilities. And they have their purpose. They're just not the go-to that we all thought of when we were young. So care can be from a family member, an informal caregiver taking care of somebody at home, like I said, a spouse, it could be a child, all the way to memory care and then hospice care. So there's the informal caregiver, there's in-home care, in-home health care, there's assisted living, there's memory care, and then hospice. So they all have a different role. And it also has to do with how the family can either pay for the care or get the resources they need for the care.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And I think, I always want to say these facilities are not nearly the sterile, awful environment that I remember as a little kid visiting Uncle Howard. You have some really good meals that are prepared there, and there's a cost obviously that goes along with that. and depending on how that works out. I know my mother, several years ago, again, she's always saying, I don't want to go in the home. And I don't blame her. She wants to stay in her house that
Yes.
she's lived in for 20 years. Um, so she bought a long-term care policy
Oh,
that
good.
should pay a good chunk of money to have someone come into her home and be with her and take care of her. Is that something that's achievable for a lot of people?
It is. So because care has changed so much. Like I said, we're living longer. That doesn't mean we're living healthier. And so,
Yeah.
but a lot of people aren't wanting to purchase the straight long-term care policies where it's use it or lose it kind of, and they can be
Right.
confusing. Sometimes people think it'll pay for something, they go to use it and it doesn't pay for that. So there's different types of policies now that make it more appealing to people to consider. And I discuss those because I like to plant the seed for people to start planning for that. And if it,
Yeah.
like I said, if it's not a policy, there still has to be a plan. So one thing that I do for people is I do go over their contracts with them to make sure that they understand it, because if it doesn't cover something, because you can have policies that cover assisted living or memory care, but not in-home care. And like you said, most people want to stay home.
Right. Right.
And they want to age in place.
So let's go to a couple of things we talked about before we came on live this morning. We were talking about just this idea of having a plan.
Yes.
Talk with us a little bit about that. What is that? Where do I even start? Let's say I'm just, I'm getting older, but I'm doing pretty well, and maybe my spouse and I are both alive. We're just trucking along, doing just fine, heading into the retirement years. We trust God, and God's got a great plan. So we just haven't really done much yet.
Yeah.
Someday, when we get older.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then we never think we're going to get older.
Right.
I'm turning 50 this year. And I remember seeing my aunts and uncles turn this age and they were old. Well, I'm not old.
Right.
I don't consider myself old. So I think it doesn't matter what age you are. Asking the questions is really important. So whether you're 80, you're 60, you're 40, it doesn't matter. I think it's important to prepare, because when you start to be open to the fact that one day you may need care, then it makes it easier for you when you need the care. So for example, for me is I think we are not planning for Matthew to take care of us. Okay, he's going to have his life. He's in Colorado. We're here. We don't know when we need the care where it's going to be. It has a lot to do with how do we want to continue the relationship. Mm-hmm. So, and this is a big deal because relationships can really be severed and damaged and hurt when somebody is forced to care for a loved one. Right. Now, it doesn't mean you don't do it with love. You still, a lot of us care for our parents and we love them, but as informal caregivers, because that's what family members are, it is really hard because you are not in that profession. You did not study to become a caregiver. So you're in this place of caring for somebody and you don't know what to do. Plus, you may still be working. You may still have children at home. And so that makes it really hard.
Well, right. I'm watching, I have some relatives of mine where, a mother or grandma with Alzheimer's has moved into the home, and that's got everything stirred up, and there are people that are working and there are still children running around doing everything. And you have this person that now everybody's trying to pitch in to take care of. And, some of the kids maybe are struggling with that. And the responsibilities they might suddenly have added on. And
yeah. So as somebody prepares, I think that looking at the relationships that you have is really an important part of that preparation. Is like, okay, do I expect my kids to take care of me, and do they know it?
That's so good, Luz. Really, April and I have joked around that Audrey is going to be the one that takes care of us, not the boys. But I think that is so good to even think through your kids' personalities, giftedness and things like
Yeah.
that.
You
Uh,
know, and you bring a really good point about Audrey taking care of it, because most of the time it is the female, it's the
right.
daughters. And even when it's in a marriage, the daughter-in-law is more active in taking care of the in-laws than, and that's just the
Yep.
reality of it. It just is what happens.
I
And
watched
not to
that
say,
exact thing play out where my mom took care of my dad's mom,
yeah.
many of the things for her in her last several years. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really common. And like I was saying earlier, is when you're talking about a spouse that's caring for their loved one. So a husband caring for a wife, or wife caring for a husband, which is normally the wife caring for the husband,
Right.
is 63% of caregivers are the ones who they pass away before the care receiver.
Yeah, you told me that ahead of time, and that one just
Yes.
floored me.
Yeah.
60, say that again. Say that statistic again.
63% of caregivers pass away before their care receiver
Okay, why is that?
because they are not taking care of themselves.
Yep.
So when you're so focused on making sure that somebody is healthy or has what they need, you are not sleeping well. You're probably in pain. You're not going to the doctor the way that you need to.
Right.
And so you're compromising. And I use the analogy of when you're in an airplane and they tell you to put the oxygen on you first.
Right. That's so good.
That is really important to do. And so Del Oro Caregiver Resource Center is an amazing organization
Okay.
here. They're in Citrus Heights, and they are the organization that helps the caregiver, because you have so many resources for the person who needs care. You might have somebody for a Parkinson's group or Alzheimer's Association type of groups. So you have lots of resources for the person who needs the care. Del Oro focuses on the caregiver, and they do an amazing job.
So
I've
you
been
say
on
that
their
again.
board.
That was Del Oro Caregiver
Caregiver Resource
Resource
Center.
Center. I'm
Yes.
putting that in the notes.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, they're a wonderful organization. I've been on their board for, I think, about a year and a half to 2 years, because it's something I so believe in. They do fundraising events to make sure that they have enough resources to be able to help the people who come in and need their services.
Yeah.
It could be something as far as like just needing respite. I just need to go. I just need a day off. I just need to go to my own appointments. And so they try to manage so that they can help caregivers with that.
Well, and I know even like in our adoption journey of adopting Amelia, one of the big things that the adoption agency really challenged us is you have to have resources to
Yeah.
deal with everything that comes along with adoption for the parents. You're taking care of that child, and it literally is 24/7.
Yes.
So how do you keep a marriage intact? How do you raise your biological children, all those kinds of things? And I can completely see how this would affect those caring for a parent, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And the relationship is different, obviously, when you have a spouse taking care of somebody versus a child taking care of them.
Right.
And both of those, I think, need to be identified and put into perspective.
Okay.
When you're looking at somebody who has Alzheimer's, for example,
Right.
why is it that when they tell you the same story 10 times that we get angry?
Right.
Right?
Why is
That's
that?
not,
Why is it, Luz?
well, because we're fighting the person, we're not fighting the disease.
Yeah.
And I think that and it just gives me chills even to think about that, because that's how relationships get strained, is because you're trying to tell the person, no, you didn't live in Arkansas. You've always lived in Texas. And to them that it doesn't make sense. Don't fight the disease, or don't fight the person, because when you can identify that, then you can say, oh, you know what? I don't remember when you lived in Arkansas. Can you tell me more about that?
Right.
You don't know what that's like. You don't know what the disease is, but know that when there's somebody who has any type of dementia, is don't fight the person.
Right. Because it only causes you to end up frustrated. And I know,
Yes.
and I've watched this firsthand, where the person can become quite mean
Yes.
and say just awful things.
Yeah.
That it's not them, that's the
Yeah.
disease, right?
Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
Oh,
Because you can
it's so
have
hard.
the kindest person who then gets a dementia or Alzheimer's diagnosis, and they completely turn,
Right.
completely, they become angry and moody and all these different things that can happen, but that's not them.
Yeah.
So,
It
so
almost
just,
makes me think I need to have another episode on just Alzheimer's dementia and dealing with
oh gosh,
that,
yeah,
as I have
yes,
watched so many people walking through that with their parents. And
yeah,
so that's another day. We'll do that one
yeah,
another
yeah.
day.
So, I mean, that's one thing that I really hope that people take with them is when you understand that you're fighting a disease, is it changes the relationship
Right.
versus you being angry with them. Now this is a burden versus I want to have these sweet memories with somebody, with my loved one, with my parent. And because we don't know how long we're going to have them, and
Yeah.
just having these sweet memories versus I am so glad they're gone.
Okay. So let's switch that a little bit around. There's let's pretend that you're the person that is, or I'm the person that is starting to become forgetful.
Mhm.
Timelines are getting really mixed up in my mind,
Yes.
and I identify an event that happened in 1990 with it actually happening in 1950, and
Yes.
things are all out of whack. And I know deep down things aren't right, but I don't want to be a burden on my kids. I might be feeling shame. I might be feeling weak, that I can't believe, and maybe I'm the kind of person that's had a really sharp mind my entire life. I've always had it together. And now this stuff's happening, but I don't know what to do.
And that usually does happen pretty often where you have mostly, and that's how it starts, where you have mostly rational, what's happening,
Right.
and then these little blips of things not happening. I have a dear friend of mine who they started to see red flags because their parent had cleaned out a room, completely cleaned it out. And the next day went into that room and goes to their loved one and says, "We got robbed." Like they really thought they were
Right.
robbed because it looked different. And that just broke my heart.
Right.
That broke my heart. But most people who start to have those red flags, I don't think will really, I don't want to say admit them, but really accept them.
Right.
And so I think it has a lot to do with those around them, whether they're family or friends, to start seeing those red flags. And not necessarily where you're going to say, "Hey, you already told me that story 3 times. And
No.
that's not what you said last time." We want to be kind because, again, when you start to be educated on things like this, and for anybody who's watching this, this is you now having some type of education on it or some type of information so that I guess I'm kind of calling everybody out on this is you don't
It's all
have the
right.
right to
That's what we
argue with
do.
somebody.
Yeah.
You don't want to argue with somebody who you see these red flags with. What
Right.
you want to do is start educating yourself more.
Hmm.
I'm more than available
So good.
for people so that I can talk with them and then refer you to the people who are the professionals in
Right.
this.
Okay.
So I don't think that as the person that you're really going to be able to identify these issues, it's going to be those around you that are going to start to see them.
Got it.
And then that even is something where we're just talking about the potential memory loss.
Right.
Let's talk about those who are aging, who need care, who don't want to identify that, who are fine mentally, but don't want to identify that, don't want to admit that they need care.
Okay.
So one thing that I think is extremely important, because you could be fine mentally, but then the body just, like you said earlier, we get old. Our body doesn't function as good as it used to. When someone has a fall, you could be completely fine. Once there's a fall, there is a huge likelihood where there would be hospitalizations and even death. So that is, I'm not just saying that out of please take care of yourself. I'm saying that out of I know this happens because
It happens
a
all the time.
client's, yeah, a client's dad had that. One of Paul's friends, mom was wife was taking care of mom. The wife passes away because she's not doing well. mom gets up in the middle of the night and is feeling on the wall so she can walk to the restroom. There's a door. She thinks that she's leaning against a wall. It's the door. She falls. And
Yeah.
then I think within 2 to 3 weeks, she had passed away.
Yep. It happens all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
no,
what about
I've watched
if they
literally
don't?
my next door neighbor that lives right behind my back here has gone through this exact thing. And it's she's in the process of just years of recovery, because
Yes.
her body doesn't recover that well, but
Yeah.
it just, she was trucking along until the fall.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, like I was saying, is
yeah.
what if you don't pass away? Now you're living with a lot more limitations.
Yeah. Hey, Valerie Connor is saying, what if you see red flags and don't want to go to the doctor?
So who is seeing the red flags?
That's what I was going to ask Valerie. Are you seeing red flags in yourself? This is just suppositional, but, or in someone that you're looking after? Clarify the question there for us, and we'll get it answered.
Yeah. And I can start to go into that. So
okay.
It's most likely going to be somebody who sees the red flags in you. Because so even, for example, I was telling you earlier, we were in these car accidents and my back is killing me right now. Okay. So I'm like, but I can still truck, I'm still fine. At what point am I going to decide I got to do something about it?
Yeah.
That, and I am doing stuff about it, but I'm just saying, what if I didn't? At what point am I going to decide that? Because I'm going to keep thinking I'm fine, that I can handle this.
You're surviving, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so when it's somebody who is going through that, they're not likely to see that. One of the things, and I think hopefully we're getting into this part too, is how do you have that conversation with the person?
Yeah. So, okay, let's see. Yeah. So this is about somebody else. If you see it in somebody else and they don't want to go, they're still living at home, but they're getting at a place where they're obviously you're going to need help.
Okay. I would say, for her, Valerie, to reach out to the professional. She can call me too, and then I can refer out. But to answer, just generally speaking, is when you start to see that somebody's failing, and I was saying earlier that you want to have a little bit more education on the red flags, but as you start to have these conversations with people, one is make sure that you're very patient, because it is going to take a while.
Right.
You can't have a one-off conversation and expect them to be like, okay, I'll receive care. Go ahead and call somebody to come in and take care of me. That's not going to happen. I can guarantee it. If it does, I would be very surprised.
Right.
So when you start having these conversations, make sure that's because you have something. You know what, Mom, I've seen that you've been falling a lot. Or, Mom, when was the last time you took a shower? Or, Mom, or even noticing the refrigerator, is there spoiled food? So you want to see specific things,
right? Yeah.
In somebody's life. So those are all things that I think are really important to look at, because it could be, are they unkept now? Are they not taking care of themselves? But they're not reaching out. These things are saying, you're saying, Mom, I'm concerned because I know that you don't want to get any help, but these are the things that I'm saying, that I'm seeing. And so how do we respond? How do we do that?
Yeah, I think of so many parts of this that my brother and sisters and I are thinking about in regard to my own mom, who just cherishes her independence, and she does a pretty good job with it at 90 and lives by herself. But the thing is first off, that fall, that one thing can change everything.
Yes.
And that's where, you and I have talked offline about this too, is I'm preparing to have conversations, and trying to warm up and appeal to logic. And we've even had this thing in our family where I kind of get nominated to be the one to have some of these conversations, just based upon how all of the different relationship dynamics work. And I think sometimes that's a good thing to watch out for, is there one of the siblings, if you have multiple siblings in your family, that's better equipped, or they'll receive it, the parent will receive it better from that particular child.
I think that in itself is already a win. when you can have one person who could be in charge of that part of it because of that relationship. Um, you were talking about, trying to kind of like go to logic and rational, and that doesn't work. It doesn't, because we have personalities where, call it pride, call it ego, call it just us thinking like we don't need the help. But what you want to do is think about the family dynamic. Because let's say if we're having this conversation is, Mom, I'm concerned what's happening, what if you fall again, what's going to happen? And you want to ask these open-ended questions so that they can then realize, I don't have a plan.
Okay, that's good.
And you don't want to be judgmental about it, and you don't want to impose. You want it to be a discussion that you're having together, and if you need a professional there or some tips, then you call them.
Well, and I wonder, how can we, and right now we're talking to the caregivers. We're talking to the ones that are potentially looking after their parents or whoever it might be. But yeah, I think through, how can we be better equipped to have those conversations, and this is what I was going to say, to empower them. Like, that's, I think, one of the things I want to do with my own mom is I want her to still know she has control over things, and I'm not, we as her kids are not trying to take control. We love her, we want what's best for her, but we don't want to ruin her life, right?
Yeah. I think that's important, because for them to be able to make, I guess, even the ultimate decision, like even if they say, no, I'm going to stay home by myself, and just saying, okay, what is that going to look like? Because realistically, as your child, I do have a responsibility and a role in this.
Right.
I need to know what I'm going to do then.
Yeah. Okay, so Donna Dews is on here. I love Donna, my sister.
Hi, Donna.
Friend. And she's talking about falls. We're talking about falls here a little bit. But let's talk about the necklace with the little, I've fallen and I can't get up on it. What is there? I know this is such a dumb question because it implies its own answer. Is there any shame in getting one of those?
No, not at all. Oh my gosh. The importance of having one, if you know that you are prone to that, is being able to get emergency people to you as soon as possible. Right. Why do we want to like fall and suffer through it instead of getting the help? Yeah. I mean, just imagine being somebody else. Like if your idea is, no, I don't want one. Okay, well, let's see. Do you want your spouse, or if something happens to them, would you tell them to get one? Probably. Right. So there's critical timing in a fall, whether if you have one or not. If you have one, and then you're more likely to get help a lot faster. I think it's really important.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And it's just one of those things. Some people, I think, understand their mortality, and others feel invincible.
Yeah.
And it kind of just depends. I know people in my family that would be like, yeah, I'm gonna fall, I better get this thing, and others would be like, I'm never gonna fall. And yeah, my parents don't like this. Heidi, there's your friend Heidi Lateau, don't like the idea of the necklace, so we got them Apple Watches, and Donna had actually mentioned the Apple Watch too. So Dad took a fall, wasn't wearing it, so that was not helpful, but it was helpful at the other times when he stuck. Okay, so that brings up a good question. And a lot of people are, who are maybe in their 50s, are tech savvy enough to go, I can handle an Apple Watch that works with an iPhone and all of that. And other people that, my mother, for example, I got her the Jitterbug phone. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Still can't use it. Actually pushes the emergency button on it all the time. And doesn't know how to turn it on or off or anything. So, there are certain people that can handle certain levels of technology. I would say be careful on the whole Apple Watch thing. be sure it's set up in a way that the person that's wearing it actually can use it, and it's not more of a liability where they never charge it, or ultimately they never wear it and you're out $300 on an Apple Watch and a monthly cellular plan with it. So
yeah, that's actually that's a good, if you're not going to do the necklace, or there's also somebody local here in Fair Oaks who has it's not, it has a necklace as well, but for people who don't want to look like they have a necklace on,
right.
one that looks like a watch.
Yep.
And I can give you that information as well, those resources as well, if anybody's interested in that. But I think that's a good topic, is the fall and having that there.
Yeah, it's a huge deal, and I loved. I mean, technology is coming along in such a way that it's just getting better and better all the time. Especially the thing I do love about the Apple Watch is you have the mobility of being able to actually have the phone call through the watch.
Yeah. The local person who does it's called Electronic Caregivers. They even, I think, have the option to look at if somebody's wandering.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not just a fall, but it's if they wander.
Okay. I'm putting that here in the notes as well. Electronic Caregivers.
Yeah. And it's Dot Boyd.
What?
Her name is Dot Boyd.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Do you want me to give you her information?
I thought that was a website, Dot Boyd. BOYD. Oh, yeah. Yes. Sure.
Okay. So let me find her information while we keep talking. What other things are you thinking?
What other things am I thinking? Oh, financial plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a huge shift in
yes.
Okay. Actually, let's go with this first, and then we'll go into financial plan. Let's talk power of attorney.
Oh gosh. Yes, huge. I have Dot's phone number. Let me give it. Let me give it to you. Okay, it's 916-799-1660.
916-799-1660. All right.
Yes, she lives right across the street from the church.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So that is so important for me, for people to understand what powers of attorneys are. About last week, Pam Chatham came to my office to drop off some
Love
supplies
you, Pam.
for. Yes, I know, she's amazing.
On the back shed 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
So good.
They dropped off some supplies for our Dignity Drive. And then if I can mention it a little bit towards the end, so if people want to support it. But she had asked me about, when am I going to do my classes like I've done in the past with the church? And one of the classes that I give, so when I do the symposiums, I just try to facilitate because I want to get other speakers in there. But one of the classes that I teach is called Your Roles and Responsibilities. And I don't know how many times I've done it. People absolutely love it. And it has to do with making sure that you have everything in place. Powers of attorney are one that I think are extremely important. So you have two different powers of attorneys. One is your healthcare directive, which is your medical power of attorney. And the second is your financial power of attorney. Okay. You can have the same people for both or not. You don't pick the child that you like the best. Pick the child that's most responsible.
Exactly.
So if you have, and I'm very serious about
No, you're absolutely right. That is so good.
So you can have somebody who's great with let's see, making appointments and keeping up on all that. And that could be your medical power of attorney person. Or you can have, somebody who's good with finances, or making sure that they ask lots of questions when it comes to the finances, and having them as your financial power of attorney. So the powers of attorney do not go into play until you can no longer take care of yourself. Extremely important for the hospitals to have them in place, for your financial institutions to have them, because the day that you need to use them and you don't have it on file, it's going to take longer. So if I'm getting them all the information today, and today mom needs me to act on her behalf, it's still going to take a day or two for me to be able to do that.
Right.
That's a big deal. I think that's really important. So make sure that you have your powers of attorney in place.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So a couple of other points that I had when it came to just to kind of seeing like the red flags. I mentioned a few of them earlier of, seeing somebody who is not be able to, poor hygiene, basically,
Right.
not be able to take showers, or someone who's having a problem with what we call the activities of daily living.
Mm-hmm.
So those have to do with, can they feed themselves? Can they transfer? Can they get from the bed to, somewhere else? Let's see. I don't think I have them all on here. There's 7 of them, and I always end up forgetting a few of them. So being able to go to the bathroom, and things like that. So when you start to see that people are having those issues, those are some of the red flags that you want to keep in mind, jot down, so that when you do have these conversations with your loved one, you can say, hey, I've noticed this.
Right.
And then you also want to look at their environment, their finances too. Do they have a lot of clutter in their house? These are things that it could be to a point where cognitively, if there's any issues, they're not able to take care of things anymore, or they forget to take their showers and things like that. So those are really important things to look at. Also, driving. Should they still be driving?
Right.
You want to make sure that at the point where they're making left turns, on red lights or things like that. I think it's really important to have those conversations, even with doctors, and say, this is what's happening. You don't want to wait until there's a fatality or if there's an issue.
Right. And I came across this just a couple of years ago. I was driving down Greenback. It was right in front of that Starbucks near Greenback and Fair Oaks, I think. Okay. And there was, the traffic was stopped, and there's just a car stopped in the right lane, just stopped.
Yeah.
And I pull over into the parking lot and get out, and this poor lady had just been in an accident. And and she was probably 87 or something like that, and we got her out of the car, and a bunch of us started to help her. But her biggest thing, and this really stood out to me, she said, I'm going to be in so much trouble with my kids.
Yeah, well, it's good that she knew that. Right. That means they've had the conversation.
Right. Yeah. And she also knew, she said, I shouldn't have been driving.
Yeah, good. And hopefully, that was, nobody was hurt.
Nobody was hurt.
She realized that.
Yeah, it was actually a fairly, probably a good spot for her. But, I was able to kind of sit there and wait with her until the paramedics got there to check her out, and others. But it's happening all around, and I think a lot of time people will get in the car, and the car is so symbolic of independence.
Yes.
Right. So that moment when you lose the driver's license based upon whatever the physical condition is or whatever, I know that feels like you've lost your independence.
Yeah. Medications too. I'm just thinking about, if it's somebody who's on lots of medications, probably shouldn't be driving.
Right.
If the medications are going to kind of impede their driving, those are, something to think about too.
Yeah. Boy, there's a lot to it, and we are at we're 2 minutes till when we're supposed to land this plane.
I know, and there's so much more stuff. But.
Well, let's talk about this, Luz. You like I said, you've been a great resource. One of the things you're hoping to do is to put on another symposium one of these days. Is that right?
Yeah. So Sarah and I spoke at the seniors luncheon a few months back, saying, hey, we're still here if you need help. We are going to have a symposium. We're thinking hopefully first quarter of next year.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to offer the class that I was just talking about, the roles and responsibilities, before the end of the year, if anybody's interested. Okay.
Luz, how do we get a hold of you?
You could, I'm in Sunrise Central.
Yes, you are.
So Luz Johnson, my phone number is 916-397-9490, or my office number too is 916-241-3046. Okay. And then if I can do a quick Dignity Drive shout out. So my colleague Cindy Rose from Senior Rose Placement, she's also obviously in the senior industry. We're putting together a Dignity Drive for this month for the food bank. So one of the requests that the food bank gets has to do with incontinence supplies. So obviously not food, but it's a need that exists. And these supplies are extremely expensive.
Right.
So we wanted to, we called it a dignity drive because we didn't want people to feel like, ashamed or embarrassed if they couldn't afford these. And that obviously has to do with their hygiene.
Right.
So we have this event. We had our first event last week, and then I can also send you the flyer on the other events we're going to have.
Yeah.
You can come by my office and just drop off supplies as well.
Yeah.
And it has to do with like the adult briefs, the bed sheets, gloves, wipes, flushable or baby wipes.
All the kinds of things that I deal with right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Still.
Just in the adult version, probably.
It's in the adult version.
Yeah.
Luz, before we sign off.
Yes.
You have recently earned a distinguished honor in our community. Is it a true statement to say that you, Luz Johnson, are the honorary mayor of Orangevale?
I am, yes. Yes.
Fantastic. Congratulations.
I appreciate that. Yes, it is a honorary. I'm not political. It is not a political position, but it's been kind of neat because basically the goal is to raise funds for an organization to support them. And a lot of what the honorary mayor does, I've already been doing in like going to events, supporting and doing a ton of different things. And so, so it's fun. I'm enjoying it. Thank you.
Good. I love it. It's, and you're one of our own. So
yeah.
Luz, also, I believe you sit on the Chamber of Commerce, Orangevale Chamber of Commerce?
I do. So I'm on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, like I said, Del Oro, as well as the Kiwanis of Orangevale Fair Oaks.
I love it. Very involved in our community and very involved at Sunrise, a part of our church. Lots going on. Luz, thank you so much for our time today. As the sun has come out and I can turn off my heat here in the shed.
I know I have my heater on. I didn't want to like reach down and turn it off while I was speaking.
Hey, let me pray as we close, and we'll sign off here in a second.
Sounds
Father,
good.
thank you for a good morning hanging out with Luz. Thank you for just the keen insight you've given her into what it looks like to just age well and to go into the senior years with a plan, and to for us to be able to know how best to take care of the people that we love most. And so, Father, I just pray that you will continue to honor and use her ministry. And Father, would we as an entire culture really recognize what it looks like to honor those that are older than us in a way that treats them with dignity and respect and love. And most important, Lord, through all of it, would you be honored? In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Like I say, it was a joy to have you here, Luz.
Thank you. It was fun.
Next week on The Back Shed, I have special guest, if all goes well, Pastor Luke Miller is joining me on The Back Shed next week.
Okay.
Now, the fun part, and like I said, this is if all goes well, this takes us back about a year and a half, because Luke, I'm sorry, what's his name? Luke. Your name is Luz. Luke will be in Canada this next week. And so he's going to join me from Canada as he is there doing some teaching that he does in some adjunct professor work that he does. So that's going to be biblical post-secondary education next week. Should be a fun one.
Very good. Cool.
All right. On that note, we hope you all have a great Monday. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.